Hi, Dave. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Dave. I'm guessing that's the way it's pronounced. So, gonna go through your work. Nice to meet you. I hope you enjoyed the course. You would have met me, of course, on the online course that you've just done. I did the section on Edmodo and the section on working with screen capture and other bits as well. Just going to come down and obviously read what your aims are, so that's all pretty clear to me. So I'm going to come down now to actually see the plan itself. The point that you're making here is very true, and you could do that video. If you use Zoom, you can automatically record in Zoom. If you use Skype, you're going to need to screen capture and use Screencast-O-Matic. One thing I would remind you that obviously the more different things you do outside of the live session, the longer it's going to take. And it's okay if you're doing one lesson, but if you're doing lots and lots of lessons, then very quickly teaching online can get overwhelming. So try to always find the easiest solution, and in a way, with the visual element being so important and you want to record your sessions, you'd probably be better off doing a Zoom than you would a Skype, and you can use Zoom for free for up to 45 minutes. I'm not quite sure what you mean here by Skype dashboard. I guess you're talking about the chat window, because obviously you can write in the chat window, or what you can do is screen share and write something on the screen. But Skype doesn't actually allow you to write. It hasn't got an interactive whiteboard feature. Again, Zoom has got that, but Skype hasn't. Yeah, nice introduction here. Nothing wrong with using some parity. I think that can work really, really well. The only thing is that you've kind of gone straight into the poem. Did you not want to set a little bit of context before you read the poem? Would that have made it a little bit easier to understand? Maybe take some words from the poem and then the person guesses what the poem's about before you actually start reading it. You kind of dive straight into the poem. We normally do some kind of pre-reading activity to kind of set the scene and what we call the schemata. So I would have, before doing the poem, maybe said, right, we're going to listen to a poem about something, and I'm going to give you some words on the screen or write some words in the chat window. Can you guess what you think the poem might be about? Something like that, because it's not always a good idea to dive straight into a poem. I think this is really powerful because you're using the visual element to try to make to distinguish between the p and b sounds. And obviously the good thing with Skype is that you can come quite close to the camera and really focus on the articulation of the sounds, and I think that's going to work really, really well. Again, you're going to be able to make use of the kind of paper technique here of blowing a piece of paper. I guess that's what you're talking about, which is a really nice way of kind of showing the student how to pronounce the words, or the effect, the plosive. So nice idea. I think this part is fine. I wonder if you might have focused on the meaning of the words first before you started practicing them, because I think it's kind of strange to practice words if you don't know the meaning of them, and I think it might help you to learn the meaning. So I would have, shown the words and then focused on the meaning before I did the practice. So I would keep that in mind. I think it's quite important that they know the meaning of the words, and of course the words that you should choose should be words that are going to be relevant to them in terms of learning the language. I like this idea of giving the list of words to a student and then giving them 5 minutes to practice, and I think that's a really good technique when you're teaching in Skype. You don't always have to be teaching, and I have many lessons in Skype, and often there are periods when I'm working in my book, or I'm doing an exercise, or I'm studying something, and then I come back to the lesson, and I think that's a really good idea. So I think that's a nice technique. No problem with having 5 minutes silence in a Skype lesson or a Zoom lesson. I think it's a good idea. One thing I'd say about this lesson, it's a very, it's obviously focused on one very specific thing, is I wonder if you might have wanted to practice the words in context rather than simply on their own, because I think when you say a word in context in a sentence, it's much more, it's more useful really to the whole experience of pronouncing words. So, you know, if you've got the word bath and then you say, did you have a bath today? I think sometimes that can be really good. You know, there's lots of people at the event this afternoon. Those kind of sentences where you've actually got the word in a sentence. I think I would be looking at that, because we don't really often say words in isolation. They're often part of a sentence. I think you're making really good use of the visual element, and obviously focus on something very, very specific here. I think it would be a good idea to send the student the recordings. I think that really makes sense. But as I've said, if you were to use Zoom, then those recordings would be made automatically. I think that would be a big help to you. Obviously it's a good idea at the end, as you said, to send a PDF and a list of words. I like the idea that you get the students to actually practice some words and then do the practice with you. You could have introduced some kind of listening activity where you could ask the students in each sentence, did they hear a b sound or a p sound? Because you also want to be aware of developing their listening skills and their ability to distinguish between the two. That might not be so hard for a student. I'm not quite sure in your particular context if Arabic students, for example, have difficulty with the recognition of p and b. But you focus a lot on the actual production of the sound, which I think is really good, and you've done some practice on it. But you might want to consider that again, just because hearing b and p in a sentence is very different to hearing the words individually. But nice lesson plan, well constructed, very tight. Hope the comments I'm making are useful to you. My feeling is you might have been better off using Zoom as your tool rather than Skype, and I do believe you can have a Zoom account now for 45 and use it in a one-on-one class. In fact, in a one-on-one class I don't think there's any limit, so you can actually use it for as long as you like. I think when you've got more than 3 students you're limited to 45 minutes. They keep changing it at the moment actually. But you might find Zoom more useful. Skype works, no doubt, but obviously if you want to record a Skype, you would have to use another technology to do that, like, for example, Screencast-O-Matic or Snagit, or a technology like that to actually record the lesson as you're doing it, and then you could give that to the students afterwards. Thank you very much. Hope this feedback is useful to you.